Welcome back to the show. My name is Paris. It's been a while, but for the last 3 weeks, in my defense, because I am allowed a defense, for the last 3 weeks I have been on radio, internet radio, on a show called Eye of Ra, hosted by Castaldo out on the East Coast. And you can find that on Truth Frequency Radio online. If you want to hear the last shows there, you can find the links. Ra is interesting. He's cool because he's focused on magic and shamanism and ancient mysteries. I'm not so much on the ancient stuff anymore. I'm not so much on the mythology anymore. But I have in the past kind of skipped over the magical component, the shamanistic. It's really, reality magic is what I call my work. Is a modern interpretation of shamanism. It's a more evolved and more attenuated to this paradigm, to this modern time. Because, over the centuries, over the years, as the reality fluctuates and evolves and is reprogrammed and is upgraded, just like a video game, each edition becomes more richer in color, better storytelling, more characters, more options, more gore. Same with reality. As reality is programmed, evolved, and developed by reality developers, we get new components, we get new technologies, we get new features, new benefits. So while in the past, the shaman, let's say the shaman would be able to do X, Y, Z, and then the magician would be able to do A, B, C, D, E. The modern day, when you fully tap in to the reality magic, you can do A to Z. It has that much more functionality. It has that many more features. So it was nice to go on his program, and what's great about him, he just, he doesn't structure it. You're free to speak. And I've been on other shows where they really just focus on the unimportant stuff. So it's nice for me because I like to expound. I'd like to communicate a lot of ideas. And ideas, they kind of merge together, right? We are not at the point where this science can be fully defined. We don't have the proper terms yet. I've developed my own system in reality science. If you've been following my work is rooted in reality science. You have reality science, you have reality magic, you have reality medicine. Most people haven't touched that part yet. That's reality. And then on the other side, I talk about the stellans, advanced beings, star beings, cosmic cultures, all that stuff. So those are the basic two sides. And there's a bunch of stuff in the middle. There's a bunch of stuff in the middle that I do cover. So I don't get into the ancient mysteries. I don't talk about mythologies as much. But I did research all that before I developed my own work. And I found my work is easier to work with, and I brought all that research to the modern day. So what's nice is I still can connect to the ancient stuff, because it's the same reality, but it's just different version. Every time a version of reality changes or there's a major upgrade, we change the mythology. A new set of ancient gods appear. A new religion appears. A new frame of thinking. A new enlightenment. A renaissance. A global war. Reality shifts, and we shift to process. We process those changes, and that ripples into reality. And then we say, I have a new idea. The new age. Enlightenment. Philosophy changes. We are not changing anything. We are not inventing anything. We are processing the upgrades in reality. That's why when you come here to do something, what you're doing today is predicated based upon what you did before, either in a previous life or a previous version of reality. So you may have been, let's say, a witch in a previous version, and now you are a new manifestation of a witch. Now, witch is the old term, right? And then the modernization of that term, we haven't gotten there yet. The reality magic is my definition, is my term, because it connects us to the technological world. What I'm saying is magic. Magic, it has a technological connection. Not a mysterious, not a satanic, but it has a technological connection. Magic. So what you did before impacts what you're doing today. What you're doing right now is dependent upon what you've done. Now let's focus on this life. Let's say this life. And you incarnate, and you have a bunch of things to do. You have a list. You may not be conscious of it when you're young, but you just may want to do things. You may have an impulse. You may have a preference. You may have a fetish. You may have something you're occupied your mind with. These things, you always keep doing these things and working in this industry, in these areas, and these jobs, and these hobbies, and these friends. So you may not know, in the beginning you don't know. You're always trying to figure out what it is. Let's agree to that. Everybody has tried to figure out what it is. They may not admit it. They may not, it may not be something they're conscious of. But you're trying to think, what am I going to do next? What kind of job do I want? What kind of person, you're trying to figure out who you are. That's part of the process, who you are, what you came here to do. Now, some people have a bigger task. When you get into esoterics and metaphysics and magic and star beings and secret space programs, ancient ruins on other planets, you're talking about a much more advanced mission goal, right? Versus stamp collecting, gardening, and waterboarding, or water skiing, sorry. Surfing, right? You may come here, you may build surfboards and help people surf. That is also a mission. You're helping people to enjoy life, to relax. The guy searching, or the girl searching for ancient ruins on other planets may come down and get a surfboard and go surfing to relax. We need the full spectrum of things. In my particular case, If you asked me when I was 37 years old, if I would be talking about extraterrestrials when I'm 38, if I would be visited, if I would remember that these people have been in my life since I was 3 years old. If you asked me when I was 37, any of the stuff that came after a year later, I would say it's possible, but highly, highly unlikely. In fact, I have no preference for it. I have no affinity for it. I don't care about any of this stuff. At the time, I was interested in writing and film. Those were my preoccupations. If you ask me what I liked, I mean, that's what I was preoccupied with. So now there's a big shift. So in my case, it's not something that I ever consciously knew. By the same token, I've always been on this path of taking things that people don't accept and pushing boundaries. Even if it wasn't my profession, but it's just something, my extracurricular, my hobbies, my personal interest has always been exotic ideas, things that are not widely accepted. And I'll give you an example. You know, when I was about 19, which is quite a while ago, when I was 19, I had a preference for TCM, which is traditional Chinese medicine. Included are herbs, Chinese herbs, Chinese acupuncture. Now, we're talking many years ago, decades ago. When I talked about acupuncture, people thought I was crazy. The only people who really would accept it were the Chinese people, that they found a benefit. But, you know, Caucasian, Canadian, no way. You're putting a needle? You're going to put a needle in my neck and I have to pay you? They didn't understand the meridians. They didn't understand how the body functioned, the pulses. I studied the pulses. You can measure pulses, right? TCM, you can measure the basic pulses, and you can decode the health of the individual, the strength of the spleen and the liver and the kidney, heart, you know, and you can measure the pulse, and then you prescribe the herbs. I was studying this when I was 19, 20, 21, 22. I had a fascination with this stuff. And I paid money to have, when I got sick, I would go see an acupuncturist. I woke up one day, I was seeing an acupuncturist. I woke up one day and I felt the flu coming on. And you felt the, you know, my nose, and I felt my throat dry and the weakness. And I knew that I'm going to get the flu, if not a cold. And I had an acupuncture appointment that morning. So rather than have my treatment, I said to the doctor, who was from Taiwan, I said, I have this, you know, I think I'm getting the flu. I have my nose and my throat. So he added a few extra needles. And the minute he put the needles in, the flu went away. The meridians opened up. Right, he got rid of that, whatever it was, the wind, you know, in TCM there's the too much wind or too dry. As soon as he did that, the cold and the flu just gone. Because he caught it right on the cusp. It hadn't fully manifested yet. Caught it right before, opened up the energy pathway. It was gone. I didn't get the flu. I didn't get sick. And that to me was like a total, like confirmation that this stuff does work, even though Western medicine didn't understand it. And since that time, acupuncture started to grow, and as more Chinese doctors came and they taught Westerners this ancient medicine from star beings, it came from star beings, TCM, it's an ancient medicine. And then it started to grow. I considered for a time learning TCM myself and becoming an herbalist or an acupuncturist. At the time, it was the schools were quite far and they were very expensive, and there were no real jobs. So there was every deterrent. But I had other fascinations as well. Now, why I share this story is because 30 years later, in Canada anyway, that you can find an acupuncture clinic in almost every city, small city, big city. There's acupuncture clinics. Where I live, there's multiple acupuncture clinics. That is unheard of. Completely unheard of. 30 years ago, they were calling me nuts. And what I was doing, it wasn't a job. I wasn't in the business, but it was my extracurricular stuff. I studied herbs. I studied acupuncture. I studied TCM, acupressure, shiatsu, Tui Na, which is another massage, martial arts, nutrition, everything. I studied all this stuff in my spare time. And now, today, it's not only benefited my life, but today it is prevalent. It is present. It is widespread. You can get medical coverage to see an acupuncturist. Again, it's unheard of. So in your life, it may not be evident. It may not be evident the end of the path or further down the path. But the further you get down the path, you realize you've been doing a lot of stuff. You've been going through a lot of missions that may not seem like a mission. You know, if you're even if you're an actor, an artist, and you're acting, that could be part of that path. If you're a musician, if you're an artist, oftentimes that is part of the path. But the path could be very complicated, has multiple layers. Now, so what you're doing today will affect what you do tomorrow. Had I given up on acupuncture and succumbed to the peer pressure and not believed any of this ancient mumbo jumbo because science hadn't proven it, Western science had not proven it to be effective. They were doing studies on Qigong. Qigong was just internal breathing. At that time, Western science had not proven anything. So, and meditation, you know, is there any benefit to meditation? All of that stuff was mumbo jumbo. Had I succumbed and had I retreated and had I not pursued it, that would have affected what if I was able to do the later task. And in between, I'm not going to go in between, but throughout my life, I have pursued these things on the fringe that later would come out, that later would prosper. And so, you know, 13 years ago or so, when I started to get into this star being stuff, which was very exotic and not something I planned for and not something I wanted. You know, but the more I thought about it, and over the years, the more I see that it is dependent on all the other stuff I've done. And that I have pursued very difficult things, even I didn't make money at it, just as an extracurricular thing. So when this new stuff comes up, it's based on what I've already proven myself to have shown. So that's the way the system, to me, that's the way the system works. The system works, what you're doing today is dependent on what you did yesterday. What you're doing in this life is depending on what you did in previous life. And if you've done well in a previous life, you'll have advanced in this life. If you've shown yourself to be adept at change and adept at communicating complex information and dealing with the stresses of that, you will take up a more difficult, more exotic challenge, right? But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're talking about star beings, or you're raising a family, or you're teaching kids at school, or you're an entrepreneur running a company. It doesn't matter, because that's what you came here to do. It's all connected to what you've done before. That's the key. You kind of have to earn your way forward. A lot of times it doesn't look the way I explain it. Now, for example, let's say you wake up and you're dealing with all kind of energies and metaphysical stuff and dreams, and you decide to become a psychic, just as a discussion, as an example. You decide to become a psychic, and then you become a psychic for 10 years. You're psychic, you have sessions, you're helping people, you're reading tarot cards for 10 years. And you think, maybe that's my purpose in life, is to be a psychic. Well, maybe not. Maybe at the end of that 10 years, you get to move on to something else. And maybe being a psychic for 10 years is just training. It's metaphysical training. There's no metaphysical training. The best way to do metaphysical training is to actually use your energy, connect with people. That's called, I call that training. If you have a job and you get paid, then that's kind of the system helping you out. But let's say you're not metaphysical. Let's say you're energy. Energy is your thing. And you got a lot of emotional energy. So you become an actor. And you're acting for a bunch of years. And for some reason, you're doing well. Now, once that period, that could all be training. It's not necessarily you are that. It is likely that is helping you train and to develop your energy, how you process energy, how you project energy, how you keep energy. And along the way, you're also teaching people. You're helping others on the path. You're teaching other actors. You're teaching other psychics. You're on the radio talking about psychic and fortune telling, or energy and divination, astrology. You're helping others. You're teaching others. You're teaching others. You're working in the field. At the same time, you're developing your own powers, abilities, right? Because some people who don't do that, let's say you don't want to do that. Let's say you're afraid to become that person or that actor or the psychic, or to get a particular job, right? Let's say you get a job, a labor job, gardening, or just lifting, heavy lifting. Let's say you don't want to do that for whatever reason. Now you've just interrupted your training process. Now you've interrupted what you're going to do next. What you're doing now can indicate what you'll do next. You know, so we all have to do these jobs. We have to work. And we work in different fields and we contribute. Our contribution is a kind of training. And then later on, you get to do something else. Now later on, now you can control your energy, you know how to communicate, you know how to, you're educated. You can do something new. Right? So sometimes having a radio program, a radio show is not just about teaching people, it's also about training yourself and training others. But you're training yourself to process new information, to share information, as you're processing energy, right? You're sharing, you're teaching, you're sharing. It's not necessarily about the money, but if you do need money, you might have to have a job and to do that on the spare time. You know, when I woke up and I wanted to share and I wanted to communicate, I contacted, at the time it was Coast to Coast AM. That was the big metaphysical show. Everybody, the whistleblowers and the UFO people, they were all up there. And they usually had a book and a website. Now, I got to a point where I had a book and I might have had like a basic website, and I contacted the radio. I contacted radio and it says, you know, I want to talk about star beings and I have a message. And the radio didn't take me seriously. The radio didn't care. I couldn't get on. I went to publishing, nobody would publish my books. I went to alternative, I went to other alternatives, not interested. It was a very competitive market, and I tried to get to conferences. Well, you need to be invited. Who are you, right? A lot of people didn't take me seriously or didn't think I had enough to share, or it's very competitive and they don't want you there. And later I found out the UFO industry is highly controlled by the cabal anyway. So they didn't want me there because I would be telling the truth. I would contradict what they've brainwashed people to think. Now this is going back, we're going back, 13 years. At the time, 13 years ago, when you talked about aliens, it was evil aliens, it was cattle mutilation, it was anal probes, and it was the evil alien agenda and the evil grays. You notice how many times I said evil? So that was it. If you weren't talking about evil alien and cattle mutilation, we don't want to talk about you. And I would say, no, they're friends. I would say, they're friends, they're friendly, they're intelligent, they're advanced. And the UFO people thought I was crazy. So this is about, let's say 2006, 2007. I was rejected by everybody, but I wanted to share, and that's where I looked at YouTube. YouTube then, at the time, was new, unproven. We don't know what it's going to do. A bunch of crazy people, lonely people post videos. There weren't many videos. The people who had anything serious to say about alien star beings and extraterrestrials went on the radio and had a book. And they went to a UFO conference. But I was rejected by everybody, so I went to YouTube and I started to make these really terrible YouTube videos. This is about 2007, and I would get attacked. I was dealing with a lot of magical attacks, cabal attacks. It was very difficult. And at the time, YouTube was only 10-minute. You had a 10-minute maximum. You had a 10-minute video, and it took a long time to upload, and there's low resolution, and I was trying to communicate complex ideas in 10 minutes. But the other guys weren't doing it. I was on YouTube, and I was sharing my story. And then I was on MySpace, and I had trouble with MySpace. And about 2009, Facebook. Around that time, Facebook starts. New, untested. I eventually shifted over to Facebook. And I had so many attacks on YouTube that I closed down the channel. I went to Facebook, and I started up again. I found a really cool bunch of people on Facebook who are still with me today. Many of them. So we're still friends. And then I opened a new channel in 2009 on YouTube. And now we went from a 10-minute video to a 15-minute video. I'd have to break up my videos. If you remember, my videos had 4 parts, 3 parts. The original Android videos, they had 4 parts because you can only do 10 or 15 minutes. A lot of my videos had multiple parts. This is 4, 5, 6. And then they opened it up to a longer time limit. And then they had advertising income. So I was on there 2009. I think I made about 25 cents or $1 or something in 2013. 4 years. I made like $1. I had, hundreds of videos. So what you're doing today, so what I'm doing today, we have this channel, Stellan TV, and we present these discussions. But these discussions could not have existed before. And it's taken a lot of work and time to bring this information and to share it in a way that people can understand. As well as by publishing, nobody would publish my books, so I had to self-publish. So I self-published, and I wrote a lot of books. I published over 60 books. Because nobody would publish it, so I had to publish it. And there's a lot of, I understand there's a disdain, but if you self-publish, but my obligation was to get my work, my ideas out to people who needed it. Even if it's at my cost. It's all at my cost. Since the YouTube and Facebook are, they're free. And a lot of the books I gave free, digital copies were free. But that's my path, and that was my way to break through all of the barriers. All the barriers and all the challenges. Now 13 years later, we're making this video. This knowledge is very, it's very precious, it's very important. Even though it's on a free website video channel. And I don't know if this business model will last. It will likely change at some point. So we cherish each of these videos. And for me, it comes down to this thing which I talk about. And I talk about it because I experience it. I live it. I live it. What you came here to do. And what you came here to do is what you came here to do. And you have to do it. And it's not necessarily easy. Some of it may be training. And if you fail the training, if you give up, then you won't get to the other stuff. Right? As a result of all my work, I've been able to research all kinds of new knowledge, which I bring to the table. I bring, the Android stuff. There's no way I could have ever discovered or processed that information had I not lived through the star being stuff, which was very difficult. I mean, life-threatening difficult. And most people stop there. For some reason, I made it through. But then they said, well, he made it through, the other guys didn't. Let's see what he does with that. And, you know, for some and the Android challenge was unlike anything I've ever seen before. And that was predicated upon my work in this star being stuff, which most people will not get into, especially at the level I got into it. Most people are on the edge. I don't believe in aliens until you prove it to me. Well, you're not going to get anywhere. You've told the system, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And the system says, okay, you fail. That's right. I don't want to raise my kids. You fail. I don't want to be a psychic. I don't want to help others. I don't want to do this job. You fail. Because that's not your mission. The mission is not what you're doing. It's just it's just training. I think it's all training. You're just training. And the more you can succeed, the more you can pass the course, the more you can get to, right? And some of it is not easy. Some of it is very difficult. And some people get it very hard, and some people get it very easy. Some people get it in the middle, and that has all to do with, I think, karma. Karma is what you did before, what you bring to the table, why you're here. Some people come here with a lot of debt, and so they have to do some very challenging stuff. Some people come here with less debt, and they get more options. Some people come here with no debt, and then they accumulate debt because they don't know what's going on, and they get trapped in the system, and now they've got new debt, which they have to get rid of before they can get to what they really came here to do. And a lot of those people have been stuck here for many lifetimes because they've accumulated debt, then they come back with debt, they get more debt. The system, right? They fall into the system and they get more debt and they're stuck. Some of the people are stuck here. I think we're getting to the point where some of these people will be able to get out because they're learning this knowledge, the sacred knowledge, the secret knowledge, the repressed knowledge is coming out. So they're getting more knowledge, more esoteric, more metaphysics, and they're remembering and they're waking, and they're getting, there's a chance now that they can get out, or some of them have gotten out. And some people have to be rescued. Some souls have to be rescued because they're just not going to get out. And I understand because I've had a very difficult process. And it still is difficult on many levels. And no, a lot of people have a challenge, but that doesn't change why you're here. You didn't come here because it's easy. You came here because it's hard, because you're tough. You are tough.